What is happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. First things first, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. And tomorrow evening, we could see history being made at Wembley as Gareth Southgate's England take on Roberto Mancini's Italian side. And for the first time since 1966, England could get their hands on a major trophy. And to discuss the game tomorrow evening, I'm joined as always by George. Mate, my first question for you is, do you think we've got the right two teams in the final for this tournament?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at form in the tournament as a whole, I think both teams have shown, particularly from an Italian perspective, they've shown quality all the way through, as have England. It hasn't been vintage by either side, but I think on reflection, you tend to get the best teams, at this stage come into the forefront. So I'm not that surprised now looking back at it. But, at the start of the tournament, I'm sure us, like many others, wouldn't have had Italy or England as their finalists. Maybe England more than Italy, but it's, a lot of the big hitters went out early on. So obviously from an England perspective, we're absolutely delighted to finally reach a first tournament final. But it's, I think both teams thoroughly deserve to be there.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that. If you, as you say, if you look back on it and reflect, ultimately the two teams that have done the best are in the final, and you can obviously argue about the logistics of the whole tournament. Oh well, it was unfair because England had 6 out of 7 games at Wembley. I would agree that is unfair, but it's the way the format was, and you can't do anything about that. But in terms of the game as a spectacle itself, George, obviously the lineups are going to be absolutely crucial. England and Southgate seem to be quite settled on their lineup now. Would you expect any changes to be made from the semi-final side against Denmark?
So difficult, isn't it? But I think he probably goes very similar. I think it's almost set in stone now, that formation and the personnel he wants to use. I don't think there are any particular surprises. Looking at the Italian games that I've seen in the tournament, their lineups, I don't think we're going to see any surprises there either. So I would expect Southgate to keep it the same. Saka to start 4-2-3-1. And, one thing that they do very well is obviously, as we know, that the high press, very good at it. They've got some quality at the back as well. So it's crucial that we try and get in behind and in those pockets in between the midfield and defence, especially because they're so experienced at the back, and they're on that unbelievable. I don't know if it's 33 or 34 matches unbeaten, something around that figure. So they're in red hot form going into this final. So I don't think there's going to be any shocks. I think both teams know each other very, very well. I think the last time we played them was 2014 in a competitive match and lost on pens, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it's sure. I think we lost on 2012. Pirlo's Panenka pen past Joe Hart at the Euros. So that was not great memories. But so you don't think? You feel that we can kind of rule out seeing any surprises like a 3 at the back or something like that. I think it's going to be the 4-2-3-1, and we match up and we see how we get on. There was one kind of thought that I had that maybe. I know Jordan Henderson's kind of fit now, and he's had a few more minutes, and Declan Rice probably had one of his poorest games of the tournament against Denmark. Do you think there's any chance Henderson could be picked over Rice for this final?
I can't see it, just because of the consistency of Rice and Phillips in particular. Those two have been pretty much nailed on all the way through the tournament, so it would be a bit of a surprise in a final to change it. I think Henderson will definitely play a role in the game. There's no doubt about that for me. But I think you have to go Rice and Phillips. But like you said, mate, you've got to take into account fatigue and everything else. We did just play a game in extra time, so I think again it's a decision that Gareth Southgate is going to have to make. And if it goes wrong, people will start to say, well, why didn't they rest this player because of extra time? Blah blah. But that's why he's the manager, and every decision that he's made so far has been spot on. So if he goes Rice or he goes Henderson, I have faith that either of those players can do a good enough job for this game.
And just on that point of fatigue, how much of a difference do you think, if any at all, is it going to make that obviously both games went to extra time in midweek? How much of a difference do you feel that Italy having an extra day's rest compared to England is going to make? Do you feel that's a difference maker, or at this level, not really?
I think particularly for a final, I think they'll find that extra energy anyway, just from being in a final. So I don't think it plays in too much. Obviously, you want to be the team that has the more preparation, the extra day's rest, the chance to maybe look through things tactically. You've had that extra time. But really, in the 24-hour period, it's not going to mean an awful lot, particularly, as we said, for England. They'll be excited to be in the final, and they'll be just as hungry. And I think, being as elite athletes as they are, I don't think it's going to play a huge factor, particularly the way the two sides play as well. I think if anyone needed the rest more, it probably would be Italy with the press. We tend to sit more than press, so I don't think it's going to affect our game.
And in terms of kind of the vital areas of the pitch in this matchup, where do you think the key, if England are to succeed in this game, what do you think the key area of the pitch is? Do you feel that midfield battle with the likes of Rice, Phillips, Mason Mount up against the three, which is probably going to be Jorginho, Verratti and Barella? Do you think that's where the game's going to be won and lost?
See, I think it's going to be more the front line for us and whether we can get past Bonucci and Chiellini, because we know how good they are at the back, and I think Kane's, I've noticed in the games he seems to come deeper and deeper and deeper as we've got into the tougher games. I mean, against Denmark, he was almost playing as a number 10. So I think it's going to be won or lost in that defence versus attack battle from us. If we can get in behind them while they're on the press and get in behind in those pockets, I think we've got a real good chance, because we know that they're not the paciest side. But if it's a question where we're slow build up like we have been doing and they have 10 men behind the ball, it's going to be almost impossible to get past the back, particularly the back four. I mean, those two centre halves are going to have Harry Kane all day long. If it's just a case of Harry Kane back to goal, we really need to be, a counter punch when they commit in numbers on the press and we can get in behind, which is why Pickford's delivery is so crucial in this game. It's why the transition is so important when we have the ball, that we're passing it quickly. Slow build up and having backs to go, it's not going to do us any favours in this game.
How important do you feel then that it is, if Mason Mount plays, how important is it that he does a job on Jorginho and stops him dictating the way the Italians play? Because, we've been highly critical of him in the past, for what he's done at Chelsea, but in this tournament and, back end of last season under Tuchel, he's been outstanding for the Italians. He's been instrumental in how they play, and he's kind of, he makes that side tick from that midfield position. So Mount to stop him is going to be vital, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's those players having the confidence to be able to say, well, despite how experienced someone like a Jorginho is, that we have the capability in that midfield. I think what we lose in that midfield area is we do have very two holding players. Phillips is there to break the play up. Rice is a bit more of a safe option midfielder. So there is a lot of extra pressure on Mount to deliver, particularly in those attacking areas, for the service as well. And we haven't seen the best of Mount in this tournament, but I think, again, some of the key areas are, not just in midfield, but out wide, with Sterling on Saka or whoever he chooses on that other side to get in behind the fullbacks. But ultimately, I think it's a game where it's literally Kane versus the two centre-halves for me, and whoever comes out on top in that battle is going to win, because I know they've got some dangerous attackers, but I think as a unit defensively, I think we can cope with Italy, but it's more of a question of can we do enough to damage them. We've mentioned in previous episodes, Donnarumma, can we get past him? Plenty of unanswered questions, but neither side have really been tested. Denmark did a little bit, but it's going to be interesting because it's two sides in a final that are quite conservative, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
And just talking about, obviously, the effectiveness of the Italian defensive line, how much of a miss is Spinazzola going to be at left back? Obviously, unfortunately, ruptured his Achilles in the quarterfinal against Belgium. He's been outstanding, a great attacking outlet for them. And I would imagine that Emerson would fill in. Obviously, not quite as good a player, but can still do a job. How much of a big miss do you feel that's going to be for Italy?
Yeah, certainly an advantage for us in that respect, that we, apart from Foden missing training, we haven't had any injury concerns. So we've got an advantage there, because Spinazzola's had a fantastic, he was tipped to be one of the players of the tournament. So for them not to have him, I mean, Emerson can still do a job for sure, but it's not their first choice. And that's an area that I think, again, England can exploit. We have to exploit the areas of weakness, and that's certainly one of them in the Italian lineup. No doubt about that.
And how big a test? I mean, I don't feel that the likes of Luke Shaw and Kyle Walker have really been tested that much in this tournament. How big a test do you think it'll be for them coming up against the likes of Chiesa, who's an outstanding player, and the likes of Insigne, who's also a tricky customer? This will be their toughest test of the tournament for sure.
Yeah, toughest test, save for last, but I'm actually, for Walker, I don't really see any issues. I mean, he gets away with so much because of his pace. I mean, he's so quick to recover that I really don't think that Walker's got a problem. Chiesa scares me. I think he's a real danger. And Shaw's not the paciest of fullbacks. So I think he's great going forward, but defensively, there's still something left to be desired, I think. So, yeah, there's battles all over the pitch to be won and lost. But I think we've got to go into this thinking that, you know, we can't give them too much respect and allow them to dictate play. Because even when we did that against Denmark, when we were sitting back inviting pressure, you almost, you know, you're asking for an error to be made. I think we've just got to try and control the game, settling as well as possible, but go for it. We've got way more attacking dangers, I feel, than they do. So as much as Chiesa and Insigne and all these types of players can cause threats to us, I think you know, with the likes of Sterling, Kane, I mean, we've got some of the best players in world football up there. So I think, you know, Italy should be worried.
And how important do you feel in an occasion as big as this is it to have experienced heads like the Italians have got? Obviously, you mentioned the likes of Chiellini and Bonucci, guys that have won everything. And even going throughout the team, everyone has won something in their club careers. Some of those players have won in their international careers. Obviously, for England, it's the first time in this situation. Obviously, we've got winners at club level. How big a role do you think that experience factor is going to play?
Yeah, it's massive. I think what does concern me is usually, you know, we said it about the Champions League final, didn't we? You know, your first final appearance is usually not a good one because it's your, you know, particularly from a Champions League perspective, when they reach a final first time, it tends to be the second time they win it because of the experiences they've learned from the first one. I mean, Manchester City were a perfect example of that. So is this going to be a case where England make the final but don't get the result, and then next time maybe we do it? You know, I think experience does have a huge influence in games like this because they don't panic. But I'm still confident that England have enough in there and have won, you know, as individuals, they've won enough collectively to understand the situation. I know it's a unique tournament situation, but in terms of, they've been in big finals, all of them, you know, so I think it's going to be an incredibly tight game. I think there's going to be one goal either way in it, but is it coming home, mate? It's the big question. That's the one to be left for everyone. But the more I think about it, the more I think the Italians are the ones to beat. I think they're the favourites going into this match. But listen, as we well know, mate, in a final, anything can happen. Or forms out the window. All this unbeaten run nonsense can stop because I think it's a game of 90 minutes. Let the best team win.
And just a quick word on the managers, mate. How we'll start with Roberto Mancini. Obviously, you know, we know him from his time in England at Manchester City winning Premier Leagues. I don't really feel he gets the credit he deserves as a manager. He's gone into that Italy setup. He's got the legendary Gianluca Vialli with him as well, which is great to see. And he's completely transformed the fortunes of that side. You know, this team didn't even make the last World Cup. It was in disarray. And now I think they're 1 or 2 games from beating the longest unbeaten run in men's international football. Just how impressive have you been with Roberto Mancini? And are you surprised that perhaps any top clubs haven't come in and looked at him again?
Yeah, amazing turnaround. It's gone right under the radar, but, you know, it was always a difficult job when you lose so many iconic players. And, you know, like you alluded to, you know, not qualifying for a World Cup, doesn't matter what Italian side it is, you'd expect the Italians to be there. And that's the standard that they set. I mean, their heritage is completely their country's football mad. I mean, the country itself is shaped as a football boot. So you know how important football is for them as a nation. And they're right at the back of the very top, the pinnacle of football, and an incredible unbeaten run that they're on at the moment. So full credit to Roberto Mancini. And yes, I think on the back of this, win or lose, I think there'll be a lot of clubs after him. But why would he want to leave? You know, I think they've got a fantastic thing going, and it's only the start for me. I think they've got some older players in there, but that's always been their formula, to have experienced heads and a mixture of youth and experience. But they've surprised me big time.
And George, Gareth Southgate on the other dugout, I think he would have proven a lot of people wrong and probably won over quite a few new supporters. I think he was in for a lot of criticism before the tournament started. A lot of England fans not sure on him in terms of his defensive approach of play. That's still up for debate, but the results don't lie. He's definitely, win or lose tomorrow night, he's bought himself time at the next World Cup and possibly beyond as well. How impressed have you been with the job that he's done?
Well, I'm probably one of the very few that's always had faith in Gareth Southgate. I know we're very diverse on opinion on that, but I think he's fantastic for England. I think he's done a fantastic job, and that shows there's still going to be people that call up, these radio shows after the game if we lose and say, he should never be in charge and he got it all wrong and blah, 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 and we don't play good football and whatever. But the fact of the matter is, we've reached a semi-final and a final with a manager and we've only done that a handful of times in England's history. So an incredible personal achievement from him. And yeah, okay, it's not the best football to watch on the planet, but if you win things, who really cares? That's the thing. And we haven't won it yet, but we're in a final, and I think it is quite literally a once in a lifetime thing that we're about to witness tomorrow. So I think we've just got to enjoy it. And yes, of course we want to win it, but it's progress, as we mentioned in the last video. And I think whatever happens, I think Gareth Southgate needs a lot of people, certainly the doubters, to apologise, because I think he's been nothing but class in this tournament. Even the decision making for substitutions and everything it's been spot on. You cannot argue with the approaches to games that we've had. I mean, we've conceded one goal that was outrageous from a free kick. Other than that, we've been spot on. And
mate, just to conclude, score prediction as always. Is it going to be coming home?
I can't on our own channel say it's not coming home. Of course it's coming home, mate. No doubts. I'm just fluctuating between head and heart. Head saying probably Italy are going to be too good on the day, and that unfortunately England are going to have more of a final experience than a trophy in the cabinet. But heart's saying England to win. I don't care how, but it's going to be tight. But mate, I think it's coming home.
Yeah, mate, I don't think I can sit here and sort of be negative about what the result's going to be. So I'm going to agree. I think England, everything seems to have been falling into place. As I mentioned, 6 of the 7 games at Wembley, it's basically been a home tournament. We've got the vast majority of fans filling Wembley. I think there's only 1,000 Italian fans going to be there, which is virtually a washout for England. The luck we've had in terms of Thomas Müller in the Germany game going through and missing that major chance. The draw as well, and then obviously Kane missing his pen and it coming straight back into him to tap into the empty net. These things all seem to be aligning. So it's going to be a tight game. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win in extra time. But that concludes the thoughts for the final. As always, guys, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel, smash a like on the video, and we'll catch you in the match reaction on Monday, where it's either going to be great news or disappointing news. So catch you in the next one, guys.